had no idea that this place existed.
I want to keep it that way. Yeah. They come up here and buy a lovely home, but they don't know how to take care of it. It's just disappointing to me. Yeah. Most of us like our privacy.
This is one of the most secluded neighborhoods in all of South Salem. I ran into some neighbors that live here and they pretty much told me, don't make this video because this is such a secluded neighborhood. They don't want anyone else to know about it. So at the risk of getting my wrist slapped for that, let's go walk around this neighborhood and talk about the pros and cons of living in Alderbrook. We are gonna walk around the Alderbrook neighborhood before we go to a conversation that I had with some of the local residents that live here. We're then gonna jump in the car and drive around before wrapping all of this up and jumping on the internet and looking at some recently sold homes in this neighborhood. My name is Clarity Odd and I'm a local real estate broker here in Salem who specializes in relocations. Just like you, I relocated to Salem without knowing anything about this city. Now I make videos for you, my future clients who are relocating here. If you want to work with us in the home buying process, go down to the description of this video where you're going to find all of our contact information. Reach out so that we can help you. The Alderbrook neighborhood is located in South Salem, but more specifically in the Faye Wright neighborhood. So let's pull up a map and take a look at where exactly this neighborhood is located. What we're looking at right now is a map of Salem. So this right here is downtown Salem, and this is actually an interactive map where I catalog all of the videos that I make by geography. So for the purposes of this video, we're going to figure out where the Alderbrook neighborhood is located. We're going to uncheck main sections of Salem, and what we're left with is kind of the major neighborhoods around Salem. You'll see here's the Faye Wright neighborhood, which is right here. But we're actually going to uncheck major neighborhoods because we are getting even more specific. As you can see here, the Alderbrook neighborhood is cataloged, and by the time you watch this video, if you click on this neighborhood, this is the video that will pop up right here. But the Alderbrook neighborhood, which is again right here, is very conveniently close to downtown Salem. Again, this is where I catalog all of the videos that I make by geography. And if you want access to this map, just go down to the description of any video and you're gonna find a link. We are starting off with the cons of living in this neighborhood, because if any of these cons are deal breakers for you, then this might not be the right neighborhood for you and your lifestyle. The first con that we're going to talk about is that generally speaking, this neighborhood is more expensive to get into. So you're really not going to find homes in the first-time home buyer price point or the entry-level home. Right now, the median home price for a single-family detached home in Salem is at $450,000. To get into this neighborhood is closer to $600,000 and up. So generally speaking, this is more expensive for the Salem market. But having said that, real estate and the prices are all very general. So depending on where you're coming from, this neighborhood could be pretty darn affordable to you. For my friends in California, in Washington, in Massachusetts, this is probably going to be a neighborhood that you're like, wow, I can get a good bang for my buck here. But in terms of overall prices compared to the Salem market, this is more expensive. The next con on our list is that you're not going to find a lot of homes that go on the market for sale here. And when they do, they are snatched up very quickly because so many people love this neighborhood. And let me just turn around the camera around here and show you exactly why people love this neighborhood. It is a very beautiful neighborhood. Which leads me to my next point, which is the fact that although there are gorgeous trees here, these ones are firs, there's a lot of maples, and there's also white oak. With that foliage and those beautiful trees, you do need to be very mindful that those trees can cause issues. In this neighborhood, if you have a tree on your property that's a white oak, that is a protected class of tree here in Salem. So if you want to remove that, if you have to remove that tree because of some issue it's causing, you need to contact the city and get their permission before you even touch that tree. The next con on our list is that a lot of people live in this neighborhood for a very long time. That kind of goes hand in hand with the fact that there's low turnover in this neighborhood and there's not a lot of homes that actually come on the market. But because people stay in their homes for so long, typically those homes are dated. So generally speaking, most of these homes were constructed in the 70s and 80s, and a lot of times because people just stay in their home, they raise their family there, they don't really do big heavy renovations every 10 years, you are going to see that the interiors typically are pretty darn dated. It's not to say that they're, 100 years old and they don't function anymore. It's just aesthetically and design wise, typically they do need some renovations. If you're liking this video so far, give it a thumbs up and go down to the comments and tell me if you would purchase a home with an outdated interior. So if any of those cons did not bother you, you might be thinking, wow, Alderbrook sounds like the place I want to be. Well, we are going to talk about the cons and probably convince you why you're going to love this neighborhood even more. The first pro on our list is that this neighborhood has very mature trees and landscaping. So earlier we were talking about some of the things that you might need to worry about with these larger trees and, this really mature foliage. But let's just take a look at how gorgeous these trees are. So this is called the woods area because it has these really mature fir trees. These you really can't find in other neighborhoods. A lot of times the older established neighborhoods, they're gonna have more white oak trees, but this is really unique because like this one it has maple trees, fir trees, and white oak trees. And all of the landscaping is just really well taken care of. And in my interview later, one of the women that I was talking to, I was actually like pointing out earlier, this is my favorite house, and talking about it. Well, she came out and we had a really lovely conversation, but she was talking about the fact that a lot of people who are moving into this community, they really don't hire landscapers to take care of their property, and she feels like from her perspective, this used to be a really well-maintained neighborhood, and the landscaping aspect of it has actually gone down over the years, which was a really interesting point. And I think it's one to consider. So if you're thinking about moving into this neighborhood, it sounds like the neighborhood expectation is that you maintain your landscaping to the pristine level. And let's just take a look at this gorgeous house, because I think this is what she's talking about. That is what it used to look like, and not everyone keeps their garden up to those standards now. There's no HOA in this community, and so there's no rules or regulations around how you need to keep your front yard, but just from the neighborhood perspective, it sounds like that was their general neighborhood consensus and expectation. The next pro on our list is that this is a very, very secluded neighborhood. I didn't even know that this neighborhood existed until I cat sit for somebody in this neighborhood. And yes, I do kitty sit because my husband, he's allergic to cats and they just bring me so much joy. And she called me up one day and was like, hey, can you kitty sit for me? I was like, great, yeah, where are you located? I had no idea where this place was located. This was a few years ago. I had no idea this place even existed. And that just speaks to how secluded this neighborhood is. This right here, this is Stagecoach, and this is one of the main roads in the Alderbrook neighborhood. But why this is so secluded is that this dead ends. You have Lamplighter Drive, you have Palisades Drive. These are private lanes. And the unique aspect of this, which we're actually going to see when we jump in the car together to take a driving tour, but if you were to just like, as the crow flies, go that way, you would run into Commercial Street, which is kind of crazy because you would have no idea that Commercial Street was right there if you were in any of these houses. So it's an incredibly secluded neighborhood. So when I say secluded, I mean very, very secluded. The neighbor that I was talking to here, she was actually saying, like, don't tell anybody about this neighborhood. It's secluded. We like this neighborhood. Don't spill the tea on this neighborhood. And here we are. I'm telling you about this neighborhood because this is information that I wish I had. The next pro on our list is the fact that this neighborhood has some very funky architecture going on. When we jump on the internet together to look at some of the recently sold properties, I'm going to show you some of the funky architecture and the interiors that you can expect because it's funky. So if you like funky architecture, I'm putting this on the pro list because I like funky architecture and it's just kind of kooky and it's kooky in the best kind of way. If you are looking to move into this neighborhood, you should expect to put in some money to renovate the kitchens, the bathrooms. Likely they're not going to have been touched for many, many years. Now, the biggest pro, I think, to this neighborhood is its location. This is such a secluded neighborhood that you don't have people just driving through willy-nilly. Like, I can feel all of the eyes on me when I'm walking through this neighborhood because it is just so foreign to have somebody walking around that doesn't live here. All of the neighbors know each other. It's just so secluded that nobody's here that shouldn't be, really. But beyond that, it's so uniquely positioned. So this neighborhood, Faye Wright neighborhood, kind of the bigger neighborhood here in subdivision, is flanked by Liberty Street and Commercial Street. Both of those streets run north to south. They connect you with downtown. They connect you with Kubler, which can then connect you with I-5. And so they are really important thoroughfares for Salem. And because this neighborhood is flanked by both of those north to south running streets, you have access to everything. You're 10 minutes away from Costco. You're 5 minutes away from Life Source and Natural Grocers, which is natural grocery stores. You have access to a pickleball and a swim club and a tennis club at the Salem Tennis and Swim Club. So you have access to everything in this neighborhood. You just hop in the car and you're good to go. So it's this really cool combination of like secluded, but also incredibly convenient. Let's talk about a real-world example of my clients who wanted to get into this neighborhood. They didn't specifically pick out this neighborhood, but what they wanted was a 70s or 80s home that needed some lighter renovations. They didn't necessarily want to do a gut job, but they were ready to tackle like a kitchen or a bathroom, something like that. And we found a house. We got a sewer scope because I was like, guys, there are trees all over your property. You need to be doing a sewer scope. So thankfully they listened to my advice because they found terrible root intrusion in that sewer line. There was collapsed pipes. It was just like holy guacamole. So that was not the type of renovation that they were looking to get into. They had a timeline that they needed to stick to. They needed to get into that house quicker than dealing with repairing a whole sewer line. It was just not what they wanted to deal with. Totally fine. They backed out. They didn't purchase a home here. But I think that's something that you should also consider when you're thinking about this neighborhood. Now, a lot of these neighborhoods, they have very specific nuances to think about, but that's why you have me. I get to help you with all that. All right, let's go jump to our interview with the neighbors that lived here before we hop in the car and take a driving tour of Alderbrook. Could I ask you a few questions about the neighborhood? What would you say are the biggest benefits of living in this neighborhood?
Oh, I don't know. I think it's fairly quiet. There's not a lot of traffic on this street.
Yeah. What about the biggest cons that you feel about this neighborhood?
Well, I don't really think there's anything negative about it. You know, we don't have any issues. You could talk to door. She's been here longer than we have.
Hi, Clarity.
Who are you with?
And how long have you lived here for?
74.
Oh, wow. I had no idea that this place existed for a very long time. And I
We
was...
want to keep it that way.
Yeah.
I know.
I know,
It's,
so don't be.
I know, it is very, very secluded.
Not a lot of for sale signs in the neighborhood.
And
No.
unfortunately, when they are sold, they're from out of state.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know, they just are different as far as upkeep. That's what I noticed.
Interesting.
People moving in from out of state, they have money because they sold from
Usually-
California. They come up here and buy a lovely home, but they don't know how to take care of it. And they don't spend the money to take care of it.
Or the
It's really
time.
disappointing. I walk every day, about 2.5 miles. And
Oh my gosh, good for you.
see what's happening, and every home is from out of state. Washington, California, Massachusetts, all of these cars, and you can see right away they must have money to take care of the yards, but why aren't they using it? It's just, I don't know what it is. It's just a different way of life, I guess.
Yeah.
From maybe a big city like Los Angeles or something, you maybe not have the yard.
Yeah.
Don't really know what to do with it.
Yeah. I
I
didn't
don't
think
really know
that.
the reasoning. It's just disappointing to me.
Interesting.
I think most of us like our privacy, you know.
Yes, I
Empty
would.
nesters, you know, type of people. Not very many kids live
Yes.
in this area.
Yeah, and my impression of the neighborhood is that people live here 20, 30, 40 years, raise their families here for the most
Yeah,
part.
we've got like 3 neighbors that are about 90, 87 to 92, I think. This house, that house, next to us. You know.
Wow.
So they got kids living. Their kids living with them. 'Cause they're big houses.
Yeah.
And so they can
That's sweet. So
So we're
they
hoping the
moved out and
kids-
moved back in.
keep staying
Yes.
there. That
Yes.
they don't sell.
Are you finding that to be the case at all, or is it kind of a mixed bag?
Well, that one on the corner sold, but again, to out of state.
And were you born and raised in Salem? Yeah, and you were born and raised in Salem?
I was
You've been here for 50 years, right?
Yeah, I've been here. We've been in Salem for over 50 years, but yeah, I grew up out in Polk County.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Outside of Dallas.
Okay.
Country boy.
I
In
was
the
a country
city.
girl, but it was Wiltsey Road, and that was we had a farm.
Yeah.
On Wiltsey Road.
All right, we just finished our interview with the neighbors who live here. Let's go jump in the car and take a driving tour. Nelly. So I had a difficult time knowing if I should put this interview in this video or not. And I came to the conclusion that I want to capture the vibe of every neighborhood that I go into. And that's why I really try hard to connect with the people that actually live there. I mean, I just randomly approach these people and ask them unscripted, all of these questions. And in my efforts of trying to get you guys a true vibe check and perspective of each of these neighborhoods, I decided I wanted to keep this neighbor's perspective in this video, even though it was one that made my skin crawl. And it made my skin crawl because I am like you. I relocated to Salem. Salem is not my home. And one of my big cons of Salem, which I mention in a lot of my pro and cons videos, is the fact that when I first moved to Salem, it felt like an incredibly cliquey city, and it was really hard and difficult to find my tribe and my group of people. And, in hearing other people's experiences, especially like with my Candelaria vlog tour, Jackie, she felt the same way. And my personal hypothesis and just kind of guesstimation here is that Salem is a city where people are born and raised and they stay here. And so the people that are growing up, they know each other, they are lifelong friends. And I think for somebody like us who's relocating to these places, it can have that kind of cliquey vibe. And, you can't really put your finger on it, but it's a little bit harder to make friends. And I think that is why. But at the end of that interview, I asked them, hey, are you guys born here? How long have you lived in Salem? And both of them were born and raised in Salem. And that was why I asked that question, because I wanted to better understand where is their perspective coming from? Is it coming from somebody who relocated like you and me, or is it from somebody who was born and raised here and, has this generational living of their whole entire family in Salem? And at the end of the day, this just goes into really why I created this YouTube channel, was because when I was in your shoes and researching Salem and trying to get a better understanding and perspective of the city, the only voices that I was hearing was people who were born and raised in Salem. I didn't hear anyone else's voice who was somebody who had relocated to the city and had an outsider's perspective, kind of looking in. And that's why I wanted to keep this interview in there, is because it's a contrasting perspective and view that is not necessarily in line with mine. But I wish I had that knowledge before I moved into Salem. It would have really made things a lot easier for me at the end of the day. And I felt like having this contrary perspective is one that you guys should be aware of, because it is something that you're going to encounter when you move into Salem. So this is kind of a spiel, but at the end of the day, I just want you to understand that I'm not keeping this interview in here to blast these people who were generous with their time and who answered my questions. I kept this interview in here because it is a different perspective than mine, and I think it's a valuable perspective for you as somebody who is thinking about relocating to Salem to hear. My perspective is not the end-all be-all, and I am a huge proponent of collecting multiple perspectives so that you can decide for yourself if Salem is the right place for you. So without further ado, enjoy this driving tour before we jump on the internet together and take a look at some of the funky architecture in this neighborhood. All right, we just finished our driving tour. Let's go hop on the internet and take a look at some of the funky homes that have sold in this neighborhood. Well, howdy do. We are on the internet, and do I have some cool funky houses to show you. Your first question is probably clarity. Why the heck are you on Redfin if you have access to the entirety of the MLS? And my internet friend, that is a beautiful question, and my answer is this. I am a huge proponent in the democratization of real estate through technology. I want my clients to take advantage of all of the resources and tools available at your fingertips. So I'm going to take a page out of my own book, and I'm going to show you how I want you to interact with sites like Redfin and Zillow to gain a better understanding of the neighborhoods that you're interested in. Okie dokie, the first home on our list that we're going to talk about was sold in 2020, and it sold for just shy of $875,000. This is a big boy here at just shy of 5,000 square feet. Now, let me tell you, this is a one-of-a-kind, unique custom home that was built by a home builder in, I think it was the 60s or 70s. And this is a one-off home. So you're not going to find other homes like this in the Alderbrook neighborhood or anywhere else in Salem, but it's such a funky home that I wanted to show you it because it does demonstrate the amount of character that you can find in a home in Alderbrook. Now, again, you're not going to be able to find any other home that's similar to this in many ways. But the funk level, yeah, you can definitely find that in a lot of the other homes in the Alderbrook neighborhood. It's just so cool. I've wanted to talk about this house for so stinking long. So thank you for giving me an excuse to talk about it. It's just so weird and so cool. I love it so much. Okay, if you want to investigate this home further, then go to this address here. Okay, the next home on our list, this is a little bit more in the style and flair of what you're going to be able to find in this neighborhood. This one, again, is very character-filled, but we're going to talk about why it's reminiscent of some of the other homes that you'll find over here. So this home sold in 2022 and sold for just over $630,000. This one's a little bit smaller at just over 3,000 square feet. Now, this is more mid-century design. You really can't see the outside here, which is hilarious. But there are quite a handful of mid-century homes. But why I wanted to show you this home specifically specifically is because it has those outdated features, right? We were talking about the fact that people live in these homes for a very long time, and so it is pretty typical to find outdated kitchens and bathrooms that do need to be updated, or if you like those MCM vibes, to just restore it and refresh them. But guys, I know that we don't like vinyl flooring anymore, at least not that kind of vinyl flooring, but we do love MCM vibes here. This is a daylight basement. There are some slight hillage and slopes in this neighborhood, so you do sometimes find those daylight basements. Tall ceilings, wood panels, love it. Okay, if you want to investigate this house further, the address is right down here, and it's so cute. The Alderbrook neighborhood has really charming Disney fairy tale, whatever the heck you want to call it, street names. Is just very adorable. Okay, toodaloo, friends.